A sudden threat late one evening. As Ethan was checking the perimeter communication lines, an alarm blared through the base. This time the warning was different, more urgent, more dangerous. Warning! Raider fleet detected approaching the base. Unknown numbers. High aggression potential. Ethan's heart sank. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trained for combat. But memories of the previous raid and General Soraya's calm, commanding presence came to him. He sprinted toward the control hub. On the way, he noticed soldiers preparing defenses, Valari warriors adjusting their weapons, and Soraya standing at the center, golden eyes scanning the horizon. When she saw him, she did not speak. She only nodded once, sharp, decisive, and moved to intercept the incoming threat. Ethan froze for a moment. His instincts screamed to run, to hide, but he realized he couldn't, not this time. He had seen how humans could make a difference, even when small. And he had seen the trust Soraya had placed in him. Chaos and courage, the raiders struck faster than before. Laser fire cut through the sky and explosions rocked the base. Ethan dove toward the control panel, hands shaking as he tried to stabilize the failing shields. Sparks flew, smoke filled the room, and alarms blared relentlessly. Soraya appeared at the doorway, cutting through a group of raider drones with her plasma blade. Her movements were fluid, precise, and terrifyingly fast. Yet every so often her gaze flicked toward Ethan, silently commanding him to keep working. Almost there, Ethan shouted to himself as he connected the final wire. The shield generator hummed to life, deflecting incoming attacks just in time. A raider drone managed to break through the perimeter and surge toward him. Ethan froze, unsure what to do. But before it could reach him, Soraya appeared in a flash of movement, slicing it apart and tossing the remains aside. "You cannot rely on luck alone," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "You must act with precision." Ethan swallowed, adrenaline pumping. "I'm trying. I'm doing my best." Her eyes softened slightly. "Your best is enough, but you must trust yourself." A moment of connection. Once the raiders were repelled, Ethan slumped against the control panel, exhausted. His hands were burnt from sparks and his chest heaved from the adrenaline. Soraya approached him, her armor scratched from battle, but her posture still commanding. "You survived," she said simply. Yeah, I did," Ethan replied, trying to catch his breath. "Thanks, I couldn't have done it without your help." Her golden eyes studied him. "You did not fail. You risked yourself to protect others and you succeeded. Few humans would have the courage to act as you did." Ethan laughed nervously. "I didn't know I had courage until just now." She tilted her head, something like a smile flickering across her lips. "Strange human. You grow stronger under pressure, you. Do not fear responsibility, though it could have killed you." Ethan's stomach twisted. I just wanted to do what was right." Her gaze lingered on him. "And that is why I watch you, perhaps. That is why I choose you." Ethan froze. The words hit him like a lightning strike. His heart pounded. "Choose me?" Soraya nodded. "Yes, among all, you have shown what others fail to understand. Strength is not only in the body, it is in the mind, the heart, the will. You have it." Recognition of humanity. The next morning, whispers spread through the base again. This time they were louder. Humans and Valari alike had learned that General Soraya had personally recognized a human as worthy of her respect and attention. Ethan tried to act normal, but every step he took felt heavier, more important. Soldiers nodded at him with newfound respect, while Valari warriors gave him subtle glances of approval. Maria approached him quietly. "Looks like you're officially the general's human." Ethan laughed nervously. I guess so. "I never thought a word could lead to this," Maria smiled. "That word changed everything. Just try not to embarrass yourself too much." Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Soraya. Her eyes, her words, her trust. It was more than he had ever expected. The quiet before the storm. That evening, Ethan found himself outside, staring at the stars. The base was quieter now, but his mind raced with everything that had happened. The raiders, the festival, the dances, and Soraya's gaze. She approached silently, standing beside him without a word. For a moment they simply looked at the stars together. The soft glow reflected in her golden eyes. "You look at the stars like humans do," she said quietly. Ethan chuckled. "I guess we all wonder what's out there." She nodded, her voice almost soft. "Perhaps. Or perhaps we look for meaning. You seek meaning even in chaos. That is why you survive where others fail. Ethan felt warmth in his chest. I just try to do the right thing. She studied him silently, then finally said, and that is why I choose you. Not for strength, not for skill, but because you see what truly matters. Ethan's breath caught. He wanted to speak, to say something clever or meaningful, but no words came. All he could do was meet her gaze. Sealing the bond over the next few days, Soraya and Ethan's bond grew stronger. She allowed him to accompany her on inspections, to stand beside her during strategic briefings, and even to participate in limited training exercises. Humans and Valari alike noticed that the general treated him differently, with a respect and trust that no one else received. Ethan, for his part, began to understand the weight of her responsibility. He saw how difficult it was for her to balance authority and personal connection, and he grew determined to support her in any way he could. One night, as they walked together along the quiet perimeter, she finally spoke. You are different from any I have known, she said softly. Perhaps that is why I watch you, why I trust you. Strange human, you have changed my view of your kind. Ethan swallowed. I didn't do anything special. I just cared about people. Her eyes softened, and for the first time she allowed a faint smile. Caring is rare. Strength is rare. You have both. That is why you are mine in a way my warriors will never understand. Ethan's heart pounded. Mine? Yes, she said simply. Mine, you have my trust, my attention, my respect, and perhaps something more, if time allows. The beginning of something greater. From that night on, Ethan's life changed completely. He was no longer just a technician at the base. He was the human the general had chosen, the one she observed, trusted, and protected. Every day brought new challenges, but he faced them with a courage he didn't know he possessed. And through it all, Soraya was by his side, not as a commander, not as a threat, but as a partner in her own way. Ethan knew the future was uncertain. There would be more threats, more battles, and more trials. But for the first time in his life, he felt seen, valued, and, strangely enough, understood. And as he looked at Soraya, standing tall beside him under the twin moons of the planet, he realized that the word he had blurted out weeks ago, cute, had been the first step toward something incredible. A bond that bridged two species, two worlds, and two hearts. No matter what came next, Ethan knew this. He and Soraya were no longer just human and alien. They were a team, bound by trust, respect, and the unspoken understanding that had begun on a moment of awkward honesty. And that was only the beginning. Always watching. The next morning, Ethan reported to the hangar to check on the shield relays. He crouched by the panel, tools spread out across the floor. Sparks hissed from the circuits, and he muttered under his breath while adjusting the cables. He felt it again. That heavy pressure on the back of his neck. He didn't need to look up to know who it was. Still, curiosity got the better of him. Slowly, he raised his head. Across the hangar, General Soraya stood with her arms folded, golden eyes fixed on him. She wasn't speaking to anyone, not issuing orders, not even moving. Just staring. Ethan nearly dropped the screwdriver. Why me? He whispered under his breath. His fellow technician, Maria, noticed his pale face. You okay, Ethan? He gave her a quick nod. Fine, totally fine, but he wasn't fine. No one could be fine with an alien general staring at them like a hawk watching prey. Whispers among the ranks by the end of the week. Ethan realized the entire base had noticed. Human soldiers gave him curious looks, some even smirking as if they knew a secret he didn't. The Valari warriors behaved differently too. They no longer ignored him. They moved aside for him in corridors, offered to carry his equipment, and addressed him with more respect than he thought a technician deserved. He overheard whispers when he passed by groups of Valari. That is the human the general watches. Perhaps he has earned her favor. Strange. He looks weak, yet she sees something in him. The whispers made his stomach twist. He wanted to shout that it was all a mistake, that he hadn't meant anything. But explaining would only make things worse. The corner in the corridor one evening, Ethan carried a crate of replacement cables down the dim corridor that led to the power rooms. His arms ached, and he kept muttering about how soldiers never carried their own supplies. Halfway down the hall, he nearly jumped out of his skin. General Soraya stood there waiting. The crate slipped from his hands, cables clattering to the floor. General, I didn't see you there. She didn't move. Her eyes glowed faintly in the low light, unblinking. You avoided me today. Ethan's mouth went dry. I didn't. I've just been busy. Lots of work, lots of wires. Do humans fear being watched? She asked suddenly. Her question caught him off guard. Watched? Well, yes. It can feel uncomfortable. Like you're doing something wrong even when you're not. Her head tilted slightly, her silver markings glimmering. Strange. Among the Valari, watching means respect. A warrior studies what is worthy of attention. Ethan blinked. So, you're watching me because I'm worthy. She didn't answer. She only took one step closer, towering over him. Ethan's heart raced, and for a moment he thought she might demand something of him. But instead she simply said, You called me a word, cute. I have thought of it every day since. No one has spoken to me that way. Ethan's face burned red. It was an accident. A slip. Her golden eyes narrowed. Accidents reveal truth. Perhaps you saw something others do not. And with that she turned and walked away, leaving Ethan frozen among the scattered cables. Rumors spread. The rumors spread faster after that. By the next morning it felt like the entire base was buzzing. Some joked that Ethan had somehow impressed the general in ways even veteran warriors had failed. Others whispered in hushed voices that perhaps he had offended her in some secret way, and her silence was a warning. Ethan hated all of it. He only wanted to do his job and stay unnoticed. But every corridor he walked through, every meal he ate, every tool he touched, he felt her eyes somewhere in the room. And worse, he was starting to notice something dangerous. Part of him didn't hate it. The mess hall confrontation happened again in the mess hall. Ethan tried to sit at the far end of the room, choosing a seat with his back to the wall. Maybe this way he could eat without feeling watched. But halfway through his meal, the sound of footsteps silenced the hall. General Soraya entered, her presence commanding as always. Instead of heading to her usual seat with the officers, she walked directly toward Ethan. Conversations died. Forks froze in midair. Every soldier in the hall stared. Ethan wanted to disappear. He gripped his tray tightly as she stopped at his table. Human, she said firmly. Yes, General, he answered, voice shaking. She leaned down, her face close to his. Tell me, did you mean it as an insult? Or a claim? Ethan blinked rapidly. A claim? No. I swear it wasn't an insult either. In human culture, calling someone cute means nice, attractive in a soft way. It's a compliment, I promise. Her eyes bored into him, searching for lies. After a long silence, she spoke. Then why do you avoid me if it is a compliment? Ethan stammered, because you're the general. You're powerful, respected, terrifying, not terrifying, just intimidating. Her lips curved in something close to amusement. It wasn't a smile, not exactly, but it softened her sharp features for a moment. Strange human. You speak without armor. Then she stood tall and walked away again, leaving whispers in her wake. Ethan buried his face in his hands. He wished the ground would swallow him whole. Unexpected protection. The next day, during an inspection, Ethan carried his toolkit through the training yard. A group of Valari soldiers sparred nearby, their heavy strikes echoing across the field. One of them, larger than the rest, sneered when he saw Ethan pass. Fragile human, the soldier muttered. How can one so weak earn the general's gaze? Before Ethan could respond, the soldier moved closer, towering over him with a mocking grin. Perhaps you should prove yourself. Can you even lift a blade, little one? Ethan froze, unsure how to answer. But before anything could happen, a commanding voice cut through the air. Stand down. General Soraya appeared at the edge of the yard. Her eyes burned like fire. The soldier stiffened instantly, saluting. Forgive me, General, he said quickly, retreating. Soraya's gaze shifted to Ethan. For a moment he thought she might scold him. Instead, she simply said, No one touches what I watch. Then she turned and walked away, leaving Ethan with his heart pounding in his chest. The silent questions that night. Ethan sat in his bunk, staring at the ceiling again. He replayed her words in his mind. No one touches what I watch. Was that protection? A warning? Or something deeper? He didn't know. But he did know one thing. General Soraya was no longer just watching him. She was changing the way others saw him and the way he saw himself. And whether he liked it or not, their paths were tangled now. The stairs were not going to stop. If anything, they were only the beginning. The morning sun had barely risen over the joint human-Valari base when alarms blared through the corridors. Ethan was still in his bunk, groggy from a restless night thinking about General Soraya's golden eyes. He rolled out of bed, tripping slightly over his toolbox, and hurried toward the nearest exit. "Attention all personnel. Intruder raiders detected approaching the perimeter," a voice boomed over the loudspeakers. Panic and confusion rippled through the base. Humans scrambled to their stations, and Valari warriors moved with practiced precision, their armor clanking with authority. Ethan froze for a moment. He wasn't trained for combat. He wasn't a soldier. He was just a technician, and yet something inside him clicked. The same instinct that made him carefully reconnect a delicate relay now told him to act. Chaos at the perimeter. By the time Ethan reached the hangar, he could see raider ships streaking across the sky, firing at the base's defensive shields. Sparks exploded from the shield generators and alarm lights flashed red across the control panels. Human soldiers yelled orders, while Valari warriors engaged the raiders with incredible precision. Ethan realized immediately that the shields were failing in one sector. He sprinted toward the control panel, cursing under his breath. Wires needed reconnecting, circuits needed stabilizing, and the raiders weren't waiting. "Human," a voice shouted above the chaos. Ethan looked up and saw General Soraya moving toward him with a small group of elite warriors. Her expression was focused, unreadable, yet her eyes were fixed on him. "You're not safe here," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "I know. I can fix this. I can—" Ethan shouted, but before he could finish, a laser blast streaked toward the panel. He dove forward just in time, narrowly avoiding the impact. Sparks flew, sending smoke curling around his hands. A warrior's shield Soraya reacted instantly. She intercepted another blast with her forearm, the force of it reverberating through the ground. She pushed Ethan to safety behind a reinforced pillar. "Stay down," she ordered. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. His whole body shook with fear and adrenaline. I'm trying, he yelled, fumbling with wires to stabilize the shield. Her eyes never left him. She was silent for a moment, then shouted, "Do not endanger yourself. The shield requires precision. I will cover you." Before he could protest, she drew her plasma blade and moved between him and the raiders. She struck with deadly accuracy, deflecting incoming attacks, cutting apart drones, and protecting Ethan while he worked. Ethan's fingers flew over the wires. Sparks hissed and circuits whined, but slowly the shield generator stabilized. One by one, the laser blasts stopped, their energy dissipating harmlessly into the sky. When the last raider ship veered off, retreating, Ethan fell back, panting. He could hardly believe what had just happened. Soraya lowered her blade and looked at him. For the first time, she didn't have the same intimidating expression. Her eyes softened slightly but still glimmered with the fierce intensity of a warrior. "You risked yourself for them," she said, nodding toward the other soldiers. Ethan swallowed hard. I couldn't just let them get hurt." Her gaze lingered on him, searching, analyzing, and, he thought he saw it, questioning. Understanding courage. After the raid, the base was in chaos. Engineers worked to repair damaged circuits. Soldiers checked their weapons. Ethan slumped against a wall, exhausted. Soraya approached him again. She stood silently, towering over him as usual. Her golden eyes studied him like she was trying to read his very thoughts. "You do not fight as a soldier," she said, voice low. "And yet you risked yourself for others." "Why?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Because that's what you do when you care about people. Humans. We protect those around us even if we're not strong, even if we're scared." Her gaze softened for a fleeting moment. "I have seen many warriors in my life. Some strong, some skilled. Few have shown courage for reasons beyond orders or honor. You're strange, human. Your kind is remarkable." Ethan's stomach twisted. Strange? Remarkable? He didn't know whether to feel proud or embarrassed. I just did what seemed right," Soraya nodded. "Perhaps that is the difference between your kind and mine. We fight for strength, for victory, for glory. You fight for others." Ethan could only nod. The weight of her words settled in his chest like a heavy stone. A moment of respect. Over the next few days, something shifted. Soraya no longer stared at him with unreadable intensity. Instead, she watched him closely, studying his actions during every task. When he repaired equipment, she observed the way his fingers moved, how he stayed calm under pressure. When he helped other soldiers, she noted his concern for their safety. Other Valeri noticed too. Some whispered that the general was impressed by the human. Others simply stared, bewildered. For Ethan, it was both terrifying and strange. One evening, while cleaning his tools, he heard her voice behind him. "You have endurance," she said. "Few humans survive even a day in the training yard. Yet you persist. Why?" Ethan wiped his hands on his uniform, nervous under her gaze. "I guess I just try to do my best. That's all." Her golden eyes met his. "Your best is better than most warriors I have commanded. I am curious about you." Ethan choked on a laugh, surprised by her honesty. "Curious? You mean like a student?" "Perhaps," she said with a hint of amusement. "Or a predator studying prey. Strange human. You make my kind rethink assumptions." Night watch that night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in his bunk, replaying the events of the raid. He remembered how Soraya had covered him, her movements precise, her presence unyielding. He thought about her words, how humans fought for others. He wondered if she truly meant it, if she understood him, or if she simply saw him as an anomaly. And he realized something else. He didn't hate the way she watched him. Her presence, her gaze, it made him feel noticed in a way he had never felt before. He had spent so much of his life invisible, fixing broken circuits and staying in the shadows. Now, an alien general, one of the most powerful beings he had ever met, was watching him carefully, protecting him, studying him. It was unnerving but strangely comforting. Unspoken connection. Over the next few days, Ethan found himself seeking her attention without realizing it. When she entered a room, he noticed. When she spoke, he listened carefully. And when she was absent, he felt a strange emptiness. The other humans noticed his distraction and teased him. "Looks like someone caught the general's eye," Maria said with a grin. Ethan flushed. It's not like that. She's serious and I'm just..." But he couldn't finish. He didn't know how to explain the feelings he hadn't fully understood himself, and neither did Soraya. A new respect. By the end of the week, Ethan realized something important. The stares, the study, the words, they were not threats. She wasn't here to punish him or embarrass him. She was assessing him, understanding him, and perhaps beginning to respect him, and he, in turn, began to respect her. Not just as a general, not just as a warrior, but as a being who carried the weight of responsibility with courage, precision, and sometimes unexpected vulnerability. For the first time, Ethan felt a connection with someone so different from himself, someone whose world seemed so impossible to understand, yet whose actions spoke a language he could comprehend. Courage, honor, and the simple act of looking out for others, the beginning of something strange is. The base quieted that night. Ethan looked out at the stars from his bunk window. Somewhere among the galaxies, human and Valeri lives intersected in ways he hadn't imagined. One word, one small slip had brought him to this moment, flustered, nervous, and strangely alive, and he knew, deep down, that the staring wasn't over. It would not end. But maybe, just maybe, that was okay, because he had survived his first trial, not just the raider attack, but the trial of trust. And somehow he had earned a small place in the eyes of the alien general, and that place, fleeting as it might be, was more important than anything he had ever imagined. The base was alive with excitement. After the recent raider attack, both humans and Valeri had decided to hold a festival of unity to celebrate their survival and the growing alliance. Decorations of bright lights, holographic banners, and alien emblems lined the streets and hangars. The smell of food from multiple species filled the air, and laughter mingled with the low hum of engines and machinery. Ethan walked among the crowds, carrying his tray of food, trying not to trip over the long, flowing robes of alien officers or bump into soldiers practicing ceremonial drills. Even with the festival in full swing, he couldn't shake the feeling that golden eyes were watching him. Of course, they were. General Soraya moved with her usual confidence, observing the festival from a central platform near the main stage. But today she wasn't commanding troops or inspecting equipment. She was observing. Ethan froze when he realized she was scanning the crowd, looking directly at him. His stomach twisted and he nearly dropped his tray. Unexpected invitation. He tried to stay near the edges of the festivities, hoping to avoid direct contact. But one of the younger Valeri officers approached him. "You, human," the officer said, his voice respectful but teasing. "The general requests your presence on the stage." Ethan choked. "Me? Why?" The officer smiled faintly. "Do not question. It is an honor." Ethan's mind raced. "Honor? What does she want me to do? Dance? Fight? Explain why I said that stupid word?" Before he could protest, he was gently guided toward the stage. The crowd parted for him. Whispers spread across humans and Valari alike. The general chose the human. Ethan's legs shook, but he tried to walk steadily. General Soraya stood at the center of the stage, her gaze locked onto him. The other soldiers fell silent, curious to see what would happen. The ceremonial dance Soraya gestured and music began to play. Alien music, deep and rhythmic, vibrating through the floor. Humans unfamiliar with the tune looked puzzled, while the Valari swayed instinctively to the rhythm. Then she extended her hand toward Ethan. He froze. "Me?" he whispered. "Yes," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "Step forward." Ethan swallowed hard and stepped closer. His hands trembled slightly as he took hers. Her grip was firm yet not uncomfortable. She pulled him gently into position beside her. The music intensified and the ceremonial dance began. Ethan stumbled at first, unsure of the steps. He almost tripped over his own feet. Soraya's eyes narrowed, not in anger but in concentration. Then, with a subtle adjustment of her stance and a gentle tug of his arm, she guided him. Step by step, he started to follow. The dance was strange, almost alien in its movements, but under her guidance he found rhythm. He noticed that her hands, though strong and commanding, moved with surprising gentleness when in contact with him. The crowd watched in stunned silence. Humans whispered to each other, "Is this part of the ceremony?" While the Valari seemed to hold their breath, recognizing the cultural significance of a general choosing a partner for the dance. A moment of vulnerability. As the music slowed, Soraya leaned slightly closer. Her golden eyes met his, and for the first time she allowed a faint trace of a smile to appear. "You move better than expected," she said quietly, her voice almost soft. Ethan's cheeks burned red. I'm trying." She tilted her head, studying him like she always did, but her gaze was different now. Less judgmental, less commanding, more curious. "You are strange, human, brave, clumsy, persistent, yet you follow my rhythm with ease. Few have done so." Ethan laughed nervously. I guess I'm lucky this time." Her eyes glimmered faintly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps there is something in you I do not understand." The music faded and the dance ended. The crowd erupted in applause, humans clapped, and even the Valari warriors nodded in respect. Ethan felt sweat on his brow, heart pounding, but he couldn't stop staring at her. Private conversation. After the dance, she led him aside, away from the crowd. They walked through a quieter section of the base, lit by soft blue lights. For the first time, Ethan could see her markings shimmer faintly, reflecting the gentle glow. "You were clumsy," she said, almost teasing. "Yet you did not falter. I think I was more scared than clumsy," he admitted. Her eyes softened. "Fear is not weakness. It is recognition of what is important. You care for others. That is why you persisted. Humans are unpredictable in ways my warriors are not. You fight not for yourself, but for those around you." Ethan felt a lump in his throat. I just do what feels right. That's all I've ever known." She studied him silently for a moment. Then to his surprise, she said, "You have changed how I see my kind, human. I do not often allow others near me. Yet you are different," Ethan blinked. "Different? That's a good thing, I hope." Soraya's lips curved slightly. "Yes, it is good. Strange, but good." Recognition among both species. The next day, whispers spread across the base. Some said the general had publicly chosen a human as her dance partner, a gesture that carried deep meaning in Valari culture. Among the Valari, a general selecting a partner was a mark of honor and trust, something almost no outsider could achieve. Ethan, however, tried to act casual, even though every eye seemed to follow him. Soldiers nudged each other when he walked by, human and Valari alike. "You've got the general's attention now," Maria said quietly as they worked on equipment. "Be careful." Ethan tried to smile. I will. I hope this doesn't get me into trouble." But deep down, he realized it probably already had. Shared trust in the following days. Ethan noticed that Soraya began seeking him out more often. She would watch him repair machines, guide younger soldiers, or even observe him when he helped humans adjust to Volari equipment. It was no longer just a stare. She was learning about him. She wanted to understand his human nature, his instincts and his courage. Ethan, in turn, began to appreciate her, not just as a powerful alien general, but as a being with her own rules, challenges, and hidden vulnerabilities. He saw glimpses of care in her actions, subtle gestures that no one else noticed. A hand reaching to steady a soldier, a glance to check his work, a nod of approval when he handled a delicate task. The growing connection one evening, as the festival lights dimmed, Ethan walked past the main stage. Soraya was there, alone watching the stars. He stopped, unsure if he should speak. "You move well," she said without turning. "Better than expected." "Thanks," he replied softly. I didn't know I'd be able to follow your steps." She finally looked at him. "You surprised me, human. Many fail, many hesitate. But you adapt. You persist." Ethan felt warmth spread in his chest. I guess I just try my best, always." Her gaze lingered on him. "Perhaps that is why I watch you. There is something about your kind I had not expected." Ethan laughed softly, nervously. "You mean, humans are more than what you expected?" Soraya's lips quirked. "Indeed, and perhaps you are the first human to truly make me reconsider my assumptions." Ethan swallowed, heart racing. That one small word, cute, had brought him here. He had never imagined that a single slip of his tongue could lead to a connection with one of the most powerful beings he had ever met. And now, as they stood together under the soft glow of alien lights, he realized that their bond was no longer accidental. It was growing, slowly, strangely, and undeniably. The festival had been a celebration of survival. But for Ethan and Soraya, it had become a celebration of something far more personal: trust, respect, and the unspoken beginning of a bond neither of them had expected. Ethan had never thought his first assignment with the Alliance would be anything special. He was not a soldier, not a fighter, not someone who dreamed about glory on the battlefield. He was a technician, someone who fixed wires, screens, and circuits when they sparked and broke. His life so far had been quiet, a rhythm of tools, manuals, and long hours bent over consoles. That was why he was so surprised when he was told he would be sent to a joint military base shared between humans and the alien species known as the Volari. The Volari were tall, armored by nature with scaled skin, sharp eyes, and a reputation for being fierce warriors. They had been humanity's rivals for decades before an uneasy peace treaty turned into an alliance against raiders that threatened both sides. Ethan had seen pictures of them in training manuals, but pictures never carried the same weight as standing among them in person. They moved with authority, spoke with booming voices, and treated every moment as if it were a battlefield drill. The first days at the base were overwhelming. Ethan kept his head down, working on repairing the outdated communication relays that connected the hangars to the command tower. Human soldiers mostly ignored him, and Volari warriors gave him long stares, their expressions unreadable behind their ridged brows and gleaming eyes. But none of that compared to the first time he met General Soraya. She was unlike the other Volari. Taller, broader in the shoulders, with silver-gray markings across her face that shimmered faintly under the lights. Her uniform was dark, decorated with the sharp emblems of her rank, and she carried herself with the kind of confidence that made others step out of her way without being asked. When she entered a room, conversations stopped. Soldiers straightened their backs. Even the air felt heavier, as if bending to her will. Ethan had not planned to speak to her at all. He had hoped to stay invisible, to finish his work and avoid attention. But fate had a way of mocking plans. It happened on the third week of his assignment. Ethan was repairing a control panel near the strategy chamber. His hands were full of wires and small tools when he heard heavy footsteps approaching. He turned his head and nearly dropped everything. General Soraya herself stood there, flanked by 2 Volari officers. Her eyes locked onto him. They were sharp, golden, and so intense that he almost forgot to breathe. "You," she said, her voice deep and commanding. "You are the human technician?" "Yes, General," Ethan answered quickly, standing straighter. "I am just finishing the repairs. The relay should be stable in a moment." She stepped closer, watching his hands move over the wires. "Your kind has strange machines. Weak metal. Fragile designs. Yet you repair them with steady hands. Ethan forced a smile, though his heart was pounding. We do our best, General. Her eyes narrowed slightly as if measuring him. She leaned closer, her shadow falling across him, and for a brief moment Ethan felt trapped under that piercing gaze. He didn't know why the words slipped out of his mouth, but they did. Quiet, nervous, almost a whisper. Cute. The second the word left his lips, Ethan froze. His brain screamed at him. Did you just call the alien general cute? Soraya blinked. Her soldiers stiffened, their eyes widening. The room went silent, the air tense like a drawn bowstring. Ethan's face went red. He fumbled with his tools, stammering. I meant the panel. The panel design is... It's cute. No, I mean small, compact. It's a saying we use. I didn't mean... But General Soraya was still staring at him. Her expression had not changed, yet her eyes were locked onto his face with an intensity that made his knees feel weak. She did not speak. She did not blink. She only watched him, as if trying to understand the strange human word he had chosen. Finally, she stepped back, her gaze lingering for a moment longer before she turned sharply and left the room. Her officers followed, whispering to each other in low voices. Ethan stood frozen for several seconds before collapsing against the wall, covering his face with both hands. Great, perfect, I just called the alien general cute. I'm doomed. The next day, things felt different. Everywhere Ethan went, he noticed eyes on him. Not human eyes, the Valari soldiers. They seemed to look at him with curiosity, sometimes even respect. A few even nodded to him, which had never happened before. He didn't understand why, but the attention made him nervous. Worse, General Soraya was there. Always there. When he was repairing a relay in the hangar, he felt her gaze from across the room. When he passed through the mess hall, she was seated at a table, her golden eyes following him as he collected his tray. Once, while he was in the supply closet searching for a cable, he turned around and nearly jumped out of his skin when he found her standing silently in the doorway. She didn't say anything. She just stared. Ethan tried to focus on his work, but it was impossible with that kind of attention. His hands shook, and he dropped his tools more often than before. His fellow technicians began asking him what was wrong, and all he could say was, "It's nothing. I'm just tired," but it wasn't nothing. The alien general, who could probably snap him in half without effort, was staring at him like he was some kind of puzzle she couldn't solve. On the fourth day after the incident, Ethan sat in the mess hall poking at his food with little appetite. He hoped to slip in, eat quickly, and slip out before General Soraya appeared. But of course fate had other plans. The heavy footsteps came first. Then the silence of dozens of soldiers sitting straighter in their seats. Ethan looked up, and there she was, walking into the hall with the same commanding presence as always. But instead of sitting at her usual table, she walked directly toward him. Ethan nearly dropped his fork. He looked around, but every other human had suddenly decided their meals were extremely interesting. No help was coming. Soraya stopped at his table. Human. Yes, General? Ethan said nervously. She leaned down, her golden eyes locking with his. Why did you call me that word? Ethan swallowed hard. He wished the floor would open and swallow him whole. It was an accident. I didn't mean anything by it. In human language, cute is just a word for something pleasant, harmless. It wasn't meant to offend. She stared at him for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then, without another word, she straightened and walked away. The entire mess hall exhaled at once as if everyone had been holding their breath. Ethan buried his face in his hands.